Women, what's one thing you wish men understood better about a woman's body? A man finally made me want to bust a nut in them and get him pregnant. I grew up in an extremely traditional household growing up, which meant I was basically trained to think that a man's pleasure came before mine. My mom taught me how to cook, clean, and dress properly so that I can leave things up to a man's imagination. I followed all of my family's rules, but I was always a little put off by the idea of it all. I wanted a man to be my everything too, so when I was finally allowed to start courting guys, I had some standards. I wanted them to be kind, strong, and funny. I wanted to make sure I wouldn't be forced to be a man's slave, so I made sure the man I dated was actually respectful. I went on all of the dates my family set me up on, and every time, I wanted to run away. These men were so demanding of what a woman should be for them, but I knew they wouldn't be anything I needed for them. So, I got a little rebellious. I joined clubs at my local college that weren't all about traditional values for once, and when I went to the Harry Potter Club, I found an entirely different side of the world. I found guys who wanted to treat their girlfriends like literal queens, where women were expected to find their own passions and it would be entirely supported. And this is where I got sorted into the Hufflepuff house and met a boy in a whole Hogwarts cosplay. He even had a little wand by his side, and he welcomed me into the house with a cheesy honey badger joke. He was the nerdiest boy I'd ever seen, but there was something sweet about him that I knew I wanted to know more about. At every club meeting, we would chat the entire time about stupid Harry Potter fanfiction or about literally anything. I would go to the club every single time looking forward to seeing his goofy lightning tattoo on his arm or his new cosplay, and he always greeted me with a hug, one that didn't seem like he was hugging me only to feel the outline of my honker. One day, I was going to walk home alone because my parents' car wasn't working. My friend saw that and offered to walk me home, which I gladly accepted. While we were walking, we passed by a pizza place and he stopped in his tracks and asked me if I ever tried Caesar salad pizza. I looked at him like he was crazy, but he just pulled me into the store and ordered 2 slices for us. One bite and I literally ascended, and I saw him in a whole different light. He was the kindest man I'd ever known, and I don't think I could have found a guy who would please me emotionally better than him. So I leaned in and kissed him, and he kissed right back. We got a little carried away and we went to his place instead, if you know what I mean. It was the best and worst night of my life for 2 reasons. I finally got with the most perfect man I could have met for me, but I also had the worst intimacy I could have ever imagined. Everyone always hyped up the idea of intimacy, but when he finally managed to find the right hole, he was using his big schlong in all of the wrong ways. But since I knew that my family expected me to put a man's needs above my own, I faked every moan I possibly could because I wanted him for more than just intimacy. The next day, he called me and we talked for hours. I almost forgot about how bad it was, and I just let myself settle for the personality. We would hang out every single day without fail, and I didn't mind his funky personality at all. He treated me like a princess. Anytime I mentioned wanting something, he nearly ran to make sure I got it. He always reassured me that he liked me, and I decided I could get used to this. But the intimacy didn't get any better, and it was getting harder to pretend I finished for him. One night, he put it in and it honestly started to hurt, so I told him to get off of me. He got off of me immediately, but he was confused about why I didn't like it because he'd done it so many times before. I had to fess up right there, and I confessed that his junk was pretty, but he wasn't using it right. He looked sad, but I think this just motivated him more because now, every time he saw me he would try some new intimacy technique. None of them were landing well enough, and I started to think it was just me. During intimacy, I would be so focused on pleasing him or not insulting him that I couldn't even enjoy it. I could tell he was getting depressed about his lack of skills, so I told him to just take a break for a bit. We hung out peacefully after that, but that didn't stop the cravings for each other. It got to the point where I had to leave him alone for a week so that no one's feelings will get hurt in the middle of intimacy. When I returned to him, my boyfriend decided to give up on the no intimacy treaty and brought me a surprise. He told me that when I was gone he was doing his own research and had ordered an intimacy kit to use. In the kit came an intimacy melt to make my BJJ wetter, an arousal oil to massage on me, and an intimacy oil that was basically just lube so we could get to business. He showed me the reviews online and showed that the kit was made for giving me the best experience I could have. He assured me that it would relax and stimulate me more. His theory is if we perfected our foreplay then our overall experience would be 110 times better. Although I was afraid that I'd insult him while we were doing it, it actually interested me so I said screw it, let's just go for it. But this time something was different. He apparently did his own research cause without me saying anything else. He threw me back down on the bed. This time the lights were out and all I could do was relax under him. He got down to business and I felt him massage the arousal oil on me as his fingers worked their magic. There was a fresh, clean aura that only turned me on more. The arousal oil had relaxed me so much that all I could feel was my boyfriend's fingers. Everything else was melting away. He then slipped in an intimacy melt and he kept talking about how what I got for him. I didn't even know I could be so aroused, but the intimacy melts made me feel like a waterfall. He angled his fingers in a way that made me see stars. I couldn't hold it in anymore. At this point, I knew I was close to finishing so I told him to put it in me. He pulled out the intimacy oil and I helped massage it on him slowly. When he put it in me he was going at the perfect rhythm and since I was so much more sensitive than usual, I just knew I was about to climax from him. But he kept going, and my legs started quivering even though it felt like only 5 minutes passed. When we both finished we both wanted to keep going but ultimately I told him to stop. I tried to stand up but my legs gave out, and I was shaking on the floor. In the blink of an eye, I felt a shock of cold water on my back. I woke up and opened my eyes to see my boyfriend holding me in the bathtub. He told me that I passed out when I tried to stand up. I couldn't even mutter a word after, Because when I looked at him, I just saw the perfect man, the one I'd want to put babies in and take care of. I just looked at him and asked, "Can I get you pregnant?" We both laughed and he said he's the one who's supposed to do that to me. I felt so loopy, but then I remembered the kid and felt a wave of excitement come over me again. I told him I wanted to go a second round with the kid, but this time I'll do some foreplay on him. I'll spare you guys the details, but as you can imagine, this was the greatest thing we've ever bought. Now I have to figure out how to get a man pregnant. 100% would recommend.